Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to be covering the weekly meta breakdown for the historic best of one format. We will try to get through best of three as well later in the week. We had the metagame challenge like a week or so ago, maybe 2 weeks. So we got a lot of covered there just in terms of the format, but we'll try to cover that. We'll cover Explore. I did say for Standard, we'll probably hold off this week just because the new set's coming out next week. I have paper pre-release on Friday as well. And we put in a lot of content for Timeless over the weekend with the metagame challenge. But we'll cover out a couple of these. Haven't done historic best of one in a couple weeks, so we'll cover it here. And as always, we get the data from Untapped.gg, companion tool that runs alongside Arena's client, aggregates user win rates, gives us a whole bunch of cool stats. Link for Untapped is in the video description. I'll paste all these deck lists and timestamp them in the video itself. So we are looking historic best of one. We are going to look at the popularity of decks for the day, and then we'll look at the best performing decks from Diamond to Mythic rank. And it's honestly a bit weird, the stats that I'm noticing. So for popularity of the day, because it's still fairly early in the month, this is being recorded April 7th. If we look at Diamond rank, it's really just like Wizards and Mono Green Devotion that's showing up in any like high density. So just looking at like the Platinum rank, and I feel like we're getting a lot of just random kind of decks or just like odd builds of decks this week. So as we go through some of the decks, I'm going to preface just some things that are outside of the norm that have me questioning a couple things, and kind of just preface with what you're going to be casting. But Wizards continues to be the highest win rate highest popularity of deck at 20%. Got shoved aside in the most recent alchemy set, which is like a 3-mana removal spell that hits creatures or planeswalkers, and it has, if you are not the player going first, it basically be cast at instant speed. So it really helps in the mirror as well, just being able to deal 3 damage. It's a card that I slotted into my Wizards deck and been very happy. Mono Green Devotion, second highest in terms of play rate. Dimir Ninjas, 4.5. Deck's very fun. Played it in the historic metagame challenge. It's a very strong deck. It's a very difficult deck to execute. We still see some control. Convoke's a deck that's very powerful as well. In the Platinum rank, we're going to get life gain Andes. Just you see that kind of coming in, but it doesn't really scale well to the latter formats. But you can consistently see kind of the Wizards deck towards the top. Looking at it, we're looking March 31st to April 7th. Only 6,800 games of Diamond to Mythic. If we look at Platinum, we get 38,000. So there's quite a big jump as we kind of go up in terms of the format itself, just in terms of play popularity, or just like earlier on. But I think some of the decks, we were getting a lot of noise. Like if I was looking at Platinum, the highest win rate deck's this really janky mono white like Angels deck, which isn't a good deck, I would say. It's also like I try to hedge people from crafting stuff that I don't think is consistently there. Mono white tends to be a safer deck for people earlier on. They think like life gains cheat, but in reality, it's kind of bad against like the combo decks or heavy interaction and removal and stuff like that. But the highest win rate deck is Kethis Combo. Very strong combo-oriented deck. A deck that really thrives in a best of one format where you can go very linear and combo out. You're leveraging Kethis, which gives you a cost reduction on your legendary spells, as well as lets you exile 2 legendary cards from your graveyard, and then you may play a legendary card. You may play legendary cards from your graveyard this turn. So basically, you have a bunch of channel lands that can be kind of exiled with Kethis to get its ability going. Emery mills you. And then you use Kinnan to double up mana with things like Delighted Halfling or Relic of Progenitus or Mox Amber. You eventually will get to a state where you can start looping Mox Ambers to generate mana. You first use this Jace to mill yourself until you could get enough cards into your graveyard to keep activating it over and over again, and then you mill out your opponent and get them that way there. You can also just cast Jace Wheeler Mystery if you mill over your whole deck and win through its static ability. Verona is very powerful with Draw Discard that fuels your graveyard. With Agatha's Soul Cauldron, you can kind of put these activated abilities and build your own Super Saiyan perfect legendary that has Kethis ability, Emery's ability, Rona's ability, all mixed into one. So very strong deck. You get Plaza Heroes, you get Great Hall the Citadel to kind of go with that, and then you have Zerd Essence. All your things have activated abilities. Very, very powerful deck. Very difficult to play. Definitely needs like reps in terms of practice to getting it under your belt. So moving on to Wizards, and there's this version of Wizards that's 75%. I think there's some odd choices with it, to be honest, and I'll kind of highlight what I've been playing as well. You could probably get away with 19 lands, 20 lands is okay. The Snapcaster main is not something you normally see. This particular version here, it's pretty high in terms of density of creatures at 17. Not normally like that high. Usually you would be at 15. It'd be the 3 Balmors, the Dread Hordes, Symmetry Sage, as well as Soulscar Mage. This is usually a sideboard choice in most of the matchups that comes in the grindier matchups. We're also not seeing Shove-A-Side in here. I think it's the better like option in there, especially for the mirror. You usually also don't see this many expressive iterations. The full Flame of Nor, Wizard's Lightning is very strong as well. We're seeing some variations in terms of numbers to consider as well. I personally think like Spell Pierce is very, very strong in the format right now. Just being able to like block a Divine Purge in the mirror, just blocking a removal spell, or screwing up like a Reckless Charge or a Flame of Nor is very strong. Hitting a Kiora or a Karn at a mono green. These are all like powerful effects to kind of disrupt and for your plan, but you can kind of see the shell here. The version I'm playing, so I've been playing this mostly on mobile. It's a very like easy deck to play on your iPad or like your phone. I've been doing metagame challenges, so ignore my rank, but I had a pretty easy way through gold and I've been winning some games in platinum with it as well. Again, I've been doing metagame challenges. Those have been more fun for me than the latter this month, but I've been on 3 Consider, 3 Spell Pierce, and then this is Shove-A-Side. I think this card's very, very strong. Just being able to have like 3 damage that if your opponent goes turn 1 Symmetry Sage, you can kill it. It's just been super, super flexible. Very, very impressed with this card here. But a lot of the similarities, we have the Balmors, Dread Hordes, 3 Expressive, and then full Flame of Nor, full Wizard's Lightning as well in the shell. Moving on, we go to Dimir Ninjas. And again, this is another deck where the archetype is very strong. This configuration is very odd to me. So I'm sharing what the stats are there, but I would strongly suggest if you're interested in this deck to look at the version that I played during the metagame challenge. It's up on my Aether Hub as well. I think that one's much more sound. So Lurrus Companion should be ideal. So then you cut out these cards here. You should be playing a full set of the Retrofitter Foundries, and you should be, I think that's like one of the best cards in the deck. You should be playing the full set of Thoughtseize as well, so you kind of trim up on that. But very, very fun deck. Tough to navigate properly, but you basically have evasive cheap threats. The Fairy Seer should be a full 4 of as well. Don't play March of Swirling Mist. But you kind of attack him with these cheap little creatures that have evasion. You ninja in things for reduction, and you get some value. Ideally, once you have a Silverfur Master in play and get 1000-Face Ninjas, if you have 2 of them, you can start making copies of Silverfur and bouncing the 1000-Face back to your hand over and over again, and make copies of Silverfur and then just like kill your opponent out of anywhere. It's definitely a deck that like you can go from no board state to very, very strong, or like 1 creature. I will say it's tough to play because you usually operate off 2 to 3 lands and your sequencing is very impactful. Where Wizards, you have sheer power and like you're just sometimes gonna just like haste out a big like burst of damage. This one's got synergy based elements to it that makes it a little bit more about sequencing, and you'll get better with more reps you'll play. You'll lose a lot at the beginning and then get better as you kind of understand the sequencing and stuff like that. This is a deck that I would suggest like watching people play it at first, just to see how like you go with the nuance. I have like a 3-hour video with like all 7 rounds of my metagame challenge, best of 3, but just a ton of gameplay if you want to see it in action. I have a best of 1 video as well on my channel. That they could show you kind of the combo element of it. Then moving on, we go Sultai Dredge. So this is a self-mill deck. So you're using things like Stitcher Supplier, Otherworldly Gaze, Founding, Glimpse the Unthinkable, targeting yourself, Grisly Salvage. And what you're trying to do is put into your graveyard either like Bloodghast, Narcomoeba comes back from your graveyard for free, Prize Amalgam comes back when your other creatures come back. Silver Smoke Ghoul comes back if you gain 3 life, which happens to be the exact amount you get from Creeping Chill that you get to cast for free. Wonder gives all your creatures flying. Haunted Dead can chuck things from your hand to get it back from the graveyard. Driven Despair, creatures get Menace and forces a discard or can make you draw cards. So a lot of flexibility in the deck. This is a fun deck. I will say with this deck here, I played it a lot in Timeless as well. It's a deck that sometimes you're going to do absurdly powerful things and other times, because it depends on how you mill yourself over. Sometimes you're going to mill yourself in the perfect way. Sometimes it's going to be like, I've had games where like all my payoff cards were in like the bottom 15 cards. So it's good against like targeted removal because you just keep getting stuff back. Divine Purge hurts it a bit, but all in all, it's a fun deck. 4-color Quintarius. So Discover was banned for Geological Appraiser, but this is kind of a port of the Pioneer version. So we have Gyruda in here for extra value, but the core of this deck is you're using a Garuga Companion, so all your cards have to cost 3 or more, but you're kind of offsetting this by using like the Channel ability from Trumpeting Carnosaur, Chefnet, Monitor, as well as Greater Tanuki can both help you kind of ramp into the deck. Similarly, you have Beanstalk Giant and Herd Migration to help you find lands. Leyline Binding, well, 6 mana, oftentimes it costs 1 or 2 mana. And what you want to do is either cast Quintarius or cast Trumpeting Carnosaur. You discover always into a clone effect. Your Spark Doubles become more copies of Quintarius, which then stack, and you just keep making copies and copies and copies. And then you use its static text to burn out your opponent. You can also do the fair game plan where Gyruda can become a copy of like Trumpeting Carnosaur or any of these clone effects and get multiple copies of that as well. Then go to Boros Convoke, 64% win rate. Very aggressive version. We've seen this in Standard to some extent. We've seen it in Pioneer, Explorer. And what we get in Historic is Kadoltha Rebirth. So basically kind of the same effect, but Gleeful Demolition could target your opponent's thing. This is Destroy, this is Sacrifice, so technically gets around Indestructible, but the core is you get these things that make cheap artifacts. Novice Inspector, Thraben Inspector, Voldaren Epicure, Ornithopter. You could Kadoltha Rebirth it to get the value. Then you have things like Night Errant of Eos, Venerated Loxodon, Case in here to kind of push you ahead in terms of just very wide board state that you throw a bunch of power and kill your opponent that way there. Found this deck pretty tough to play against from the Wizards side. In Wizards, you're really good at dealing with 1 to 2 threats when they go like 3 wide and they have like Anthem effects. It's also pretty tough to beat. We then go to, again, a slightly weird version of Mono Green Devotion. So I can usually tell the deck is not super competitive in the sense. As soon as I see Gaia's Blessing. Gaia's Blessing is someone lost once to Mill, and they're like, oh, I'm never going to lose to Mill again. Even though Mill's like 1 in like 100 matchups. Like if Kethis is a super played deck in the format, maybe you keep one in the sideboard, but even then Kethis wins by just them drawing through the other Jace. So it doesn't even matter. You're trying to solve for a problem without really solving. So first thing off, cut this Guy's Blessing, play the 4th Storm the Festival. This version here is a little bit more kind of Stompy-esque. You have Vivian in here that can put counters, fights, and searches for a creature outside your library. Acidic Slime's kind of a utility creature. You can probably play the 3-mana Pelucranos instead, but if you want to blow up some stuff, I guess. But you're basically generating a whole bunch of mana. You have your Accelerants on 1. You have Kiora to tap on tap stuff, which is ideally going to be Nykthos Shrine to Nyx to generate a whole bunch of mana. The cool card that I'm actually kind of interested to see how this plays out, because it lets the deck attack on a different angle. Rampaging Ursangowana, Bear Lizard Mutant, 6 mana, but you can have it disguised. Trample, Ward 2, Haste, it gets +2/2 for each time this creature attacked this game. So progressively just gets bigger. The ward's kind of interesting. Platinum Angel's not a card you should play in your sideboard. Helm of the Host is not a card you should play in your sideboard. So like there's some weird choices here. Like if we're looking at the actual deck, it's got a slightly lower win rate right now. Let me find, like there's just some weird versions of this going around. I think this is a more reasonable take of the deck itself. Where'd it go? Where's mono green? So this isn't something you see too often with the Voracious, but it's still reasonable. This Nissa Vital Force is not something you usually see, but it's reasonable. This sideboard configuration, again, like Platinum Angel, Wizards can kill it, like Convoke can kill it. There's enough things to kill it that I don't think it's great, but you should be playing Akroma's Memorial in place of this. So just play the Akroma's Memorial. It's a better card. Basically, when you storm off, you can give all your things haste and just kind of win that way there. I think it's a better. Play Haywire Might instead of the Platinum Angel, I would say. Just gives you some utility, and then this should just be any sort of graveyard hate of your choice. Tormod's Crypt is probably the best option there, just to have access to that. And then lastly, disclaimer, I cannot endorse this deck. I am just merely reporting on the stats. Your wild cards proceed as you want to burn them. I do not recommend spending your wild cards if you don't have these cards already, unless you absolutely want to and play Slivers. I cannot endorse this deck fully. But Slivers, this deck is a deck where you're going to use a lot of wild cards on cards that are not playable in any other deck, but someone had fun with Slivers. They all kind of stack, they do different things. So one gives first strike, this is unblockable, flying haste, protects from like, makes it cost 2 more to target, drains your opponent, gives you mana, gives you power, gives you vigilance. So they all kind of do stuff. You get double triggers off Roaming Throne, you have your cascade effects, you're indestructible, you got a bunch of utility and tri-lands in the deck as well. As always, proceed at your own caution. But this is kind of what I was saying with the week. It's been very odd. Like Historic, kind of comparing to like some of what we're seeing in Timeless, has gotten a little bit more casual oriented. Like when I was playing, I was still running into a good amount of like Wizards, but that could just be my like top tier decks, like tier 1. That could just be my MMR that I'm playing like better decks. Like even if we look at like what I was playing here, I forget what this was. It could be Amalia combo. I was running into that a lot. Yeah, so like Amalia combo. So there's different variations there. This was like mono white artifacts, ninjas. Like you can see like in various decks that I'm running into. Mono green, we saw a lot of that. This was Storm Herald that got me. But I think as you kind of play through Historic, you'll see different things. But all in all, let me know what you think of the format. It's been a little bit weird. I've been enjoying best of 3. I think there's some modification, like things you can do there, but I'm curious to see what your thoughts are on this compared to something like Timeless. I know a lot of folks moved over to Timeless, but curious to see where people stand. In any case, thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one and stay safe out there.